Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Chase. Glad to be back with you all. It's been about a 2-week break, and you might have been wondering why I took roughly a 2-week break. Well, I can tell you why. I told you guys about, let's see, when was this? It began on May 16th. It's now the 30th, I believe. I told you guys that we'd be chopping. Chop across the board, sweep and more chop. I said it many times. Chop, chop, chop. That's what we got. That was all the way back here that I called for chop. So took off this little period of time here. In my opinion, there wasn't too much reason to be in the market. There was this little move that could have been played, the sweep of the high. I had actually drawn that for you. There it is. Comes back and chops more. If you move down to a 4-hour, you could see it. Comes up, comes right back into the chop. So that's really why. Now, you might be asking, oh, well, how did you know that there was chop? Okay, so let's do a quick learning thing. So when we zoom out, right, we had high time frame liquidity taken on the weekly. Okay, once I saw that, I said, well, you know what? After that, we're going to be taking at least one of these liquidities. I wasn't sure which one it was going to be, if it was going to be the 1760s or if we were going all the way down to 1684. That I did not know, but... So let me check that I'm recording. Yep, we are. That I didn't know for sure, but when I saw that we started doing this, just chop in here and this tap, 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 and we'll tighten this up to what I showed you guys on Twitter as well. But when I saw that we had taken this liquidity and we bounced, and if you look locally, or from the weekly, we had taken this liquidity, okay, and then you look locally and you say, okay, well, we took that liquidity. Then, if you even move down, you took this one and that one, right? You took them at the same time. So this high developed, that high developed, and then this one swept them both. And then basically just as you went to lower and lower time frames, the moves became choppier and choppier and choppier, smaller moves, right? So then you came up, you broke down, you came up, you took this liquidity into here. I think this was a trade I posted on Twitter, I'm not sure. But I remember taking it. I either took it or I posted it. I can't remember which one. It's been a little while. Nonetheless, so that's how I knew that chop was coming, was that all this local liquidity had been taken and the moves had becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And when the moves keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and there's no more targets, right? How I told you in the last video, entries require targets. Since there was no more targets left for me, I knew there wasn't any entry for me. Okay, sip of water, everybody hydrate. So, what I was waiting for to get back into the market was some type of a decent impulse move on the daily. And in my opinion, that's what we're seeing here. So, how did I break down for the current trade idea? We'll do that. So, I'm looking at local price action here. It's great and all that we swept this. But overall, this is still an uptrend here. We're still seeing an uptrend even though we swept liquidity. So taking another stab at this is not out of the question, in my opinion. I think it's quite probable. But what we want to do is we just want to zoom in on this local price action right here first off to get a general idea of what a local trade might look like for us. So we put in a high, and then we put in a low here, and then we bounced. So I mark out this low on the weekly. Okay, let's go over that again. We have a big uptrend here. We put in a high here. We come down. This is the low before we see a major bounce, right? We don't see a major bounce from here. You see a little something, but really the major bounce comes from this low and you put in a high. And I mark out this high as well. So now we have a low and we have a high. And what do we see to the downside? We see sweeps of liquidity, and potentially even we could call this a bit of accumulation in my opinion. We'll go down to the daily here. Just tighten this up. So look at all these stabs at this area. So what's happening in here is people are selling expecting a breakdown. I saw this a lot on Twitter. I saw a lot of people saying this is breaking down. We're going down to here, 1600s. A lot of people thought breakdown when I was saying chop. I told you chop. Everyone else, a lot of people said breakdown. I think it was pretty obvious that we were going to chop, and I, just explained to you why. When those targets, when there's no targets available, when there's nothing like, oh yeah, this is obvious liquidity, like this is a great target, this is obvious resistance, this is a great target, or obvious support, again, great target. Like once all those great targets are gone, you're most likely entering chop, okay? So what you're seeing here is, in my opinion, you're seeing people trying to short the breakdown. So they're saying, oh yeah, this is breaking down, this is going much lower, I'm shorting. They're shorting in here on this wick, they're shorting in here on this wick, they're shorting in here on this wick. And what's happening is that the big player is scooping up all the orders with his limit bids, right? So they're market selling into his limit bids because he can't market buy. We know that if he market buys, he's going to push up the price. He needs time to accumulate whatever entity, he, she, whatever you want to say, whatever it is. Whoever was buying this up took some time to accumulate it down here. And then after we see this accumulation here, we see this move upwards. So in my opinion, this is a decent confirmation that these lows that we're done working or we're done being in this price area, at least for now. Right? We could come up, sweep, and go back down later. That's fine. I'm not saying we're not going lower. I still think that like liquidity targets like this are, we'll say probable, but not right now. It's not what I'm looking at right now. And a lot of people, they bring up my old tweets and whatnot and ask me about old ideas. And what you should think about, and what you should know at least about me and how you should trade, in my opinion, is that you should look at relevant data, right? The most recent price action here. In my opinion, if you're seeing, these prices be scooped up multiple times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If 1760, 1760s, 1780s, if this got scooped up like 6 or 7 times, don't we think that should be at least some type of a short-term, some type of a short-term bottom, at least towards the next liquidity? And I'll show you how I picked sort of this as target. It's confluent with this resistance up here that we never really fully tapped, by the way, which was always a bit odd to me. I thought that we were going to, on this push up, at least push up to like the bottom here, but we never did. And that sort of gives me more confidence that we get into gray as well, although my target would simply be the liquidity, okay? I don't need to play for an extra, 20 points. I just take profit above liquidity. I like easy entries, easy exits. That's how I trade, okay? So again, we took these levels from the weekly, right? We'll go back to that. So we had a weekly low, we had a weekly high. This accumulation down here I just explained to you, and then we see an impulse move up. We go back down to the daily, we mark out this resistance level here, and I think that since we see this impulse up, let me just delete this for now, I think that any move back down below here should get bought up. If you wanted to mark this out like this, just to say, okay, well, this was your whole resistance area before this moved up, you push into here, anywhere into here is fine. I wouldn't want to see it go too low, but I feel like just a sweep of this into here, anywhere around there is fine, and then move up to this liquidity right here. That is my current trade idea and what I'm looking to trade, okay, long on that. Okay, let's think. I think this might be somewhat of a short video, to be honest, but I'm trying to think of what else I'd want to say. We covered the chop. We covered why it would be chop. We covered what was happening in here, in my opinion. Now we're seeing a leg. Okay. So why do I think that this can clear this area? Let me show you. I go down to a low time frame here, and I see pretty inefficient action, in my opinion, right? So a sweep of this liquidity is not out of the question. Maybe we do a sweep of this, we come down, we sweep this, and then maybe we make the move, or you do a sweep, you get people scared down here, and then you make the move, something of that nature. Probably what happens. But if you're to start closing above here, so let's say we do sweep this, and you get into here, and you start closing above here, there's not really that much resistance in here, right? Like, this is a pretty inefficient move. Inefficient moves tend to get filled. This wick, again, there's not really much going on here, in my opinion. This is it's sort of ripe, in my opinion. It's ripe for the taking. A lot of people, probably they were trying to short in here, stops in here, or stops above here or something. If we bring this down, stops in here. I don't think that there's that much resistance in here, and just looking at the candles. And I think it could just tear right up, take that liquidity. And then from there, I haven't really thought about from there too much. I'm usually a one trade at a time type of guy. Keeps me focused on what I think is important. But I would expect that the first attempt of this resistance is a rejection. First attempts are often the highest hit rate of a trade. So I probably would look for a short somewhere in here. Again, you shouldn't ask me like, oh, should we be already setting short orders in here and whatnot, because it's not really relevant just yet, right? What if this comes down and comes back down into here? Then what's the point, right? And if it does, and if it came down and swept all this, right? If it did, I probably, you could get a short off of this still probably, but it would be short-lived because of the liquidity taken down here. You could possibly go higher. So yeah, as we approach here, I'll consider what I want to do into here. I don't know, depending on the amount of consolidation. If it consolidates for a long time, right? So if it consolidates, and try to get some of this out of the way. If it consolidates for a long time right here, it might go higher than just this low, right? It might really test into here. If it's a very fast and inefficient move, a quick rejection is probably likely. Okay, so there's a couple different scenarios in there I could play short, but for right now I'm focused on the long. Okay, focused on the long from the mid 1800s, somewhere around 1860, 1870, something along that nature. Looking to play it towards this liquidity. Yeah, and I think that's good for now. Let's just clear this off once again and just make it clean. And we're going to say, okay, we make a high, we make a low before we do our bounce, and here's our bounce, and here's our sweeps of liquidity. Liquidity to liquidity. Optimal trade scenario that I often look for, right? Liquidity taken here to liquidity up here, directly into resistance right here. It looks clean to me. Excuse me. That's my plan. Okay, give me 1 second. We'll look at ES. Okay, before we look at ES, let's take a look at the calendar real quick. Coming up, non-farm. Okay, so yeah, we could get some volatility later this week, most likely. Let's take a look at ES here. Already had ES marked out basically, but from what I'm seeing, it's just a lot of looking at the weekly here. It's a lot of buildup right below this liquidity. A lot of buildup. I think we take this in some type of way quite soon. You have a level down here that wasn't retested too much. Someone's running a lawnmower outside of my my room. You can just never catch a break sometimes. Yeah, it is. I'm grateful, but yeah, every time I make a video, something starts happening in the background. It's amazing. Locally. I think I had it on the hourly. There's a low here, right? Maybe something along these lines. Consolidate below the low around this high, something of that nature. Maybe even tap the high, but I can't say for sure. Even just a sweep of this, and then look at up here. You have equal highs right there, confluent with this high here. So you have triple liquidity up there, and then make our way up into here, and we'll see from there. That's just a short-term trade idea for ES, but I can't say for sure whether I'd be taking it because at the moment my schedule is not really aligned to be trading ES a ton. Keep trying to put out the analysis for you guys, but I'll be honest, I did not spend a ton of time on the ES chart today. More of my focus was on ETH. I thought this was a clean idea. So, anything else to talk about? My 2 weeks away, not really away. I post it every now and then, but I think it's good every now and then just to take a little break from the charts. I timed it perfectly. That was intentional. If there was a big impulse move while I was taking my quote unquote break, I probably would have came back. But it pretty much timed it perfectly, right? The whole entire chop, when everyone was screaming for breakdown, I told you it was just going to be chop. We stayed calm, cool, collected, enjoyed the weather, whatever you want to say. Got off the computer for a little bit and didn't miss hardly anything. Maybe missed one move, if you really wanted to say it. One move that I had already called, Not a big deal. Again, it would have been very small risk reward trying to trade that liquidity back into the chop. Maybe one risk reward at best. So no big deal. We're seeing an impulse here. I think any retracement is a decent buy. We play it liquidity to liquidity. That's my current idea for now. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope you have all been well. As always, these videos are sponsored by Prime XBT. You can find my links at the bottom. If you sign up and deposit there, it's very helpful. I also have other links in my description, all that stuff. Appreciate you guys. And yeah, of course, always like, comment, retweet, leave comments, questions, etc. All right, thanks guys. Talk soon. Bye.